Hi, I'm Paul Simpson from the Football Club. Welcome to the Brunton Bugle.
Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Adam Tiffin.
Good news! The season ends 2.5 hours earlier than we originally thought. It's preview time as we look ahead to United's home clash with playoff chasing Stevenage, while we answer your listener questions on a wide range of topics.
With a pass so true, the ball, the stone, and Clark's in view. There's a cross and a run.
It kind of sums up the season we're having, Adam, isn't it? That we're celebrating the fact that the season is 2.5 hours shorter than we originally thought, isn't it?
Well, some people are. Mike was the first one I saw who was pretty happy about it, but everyone who planned to travel down to Derby is not happy with that decision. I'm not one of those people, thankfully. It means we'll get to watch it on iFollow, though, for everyone who's not attending, right?
Yes. I'm not sure. It's one of those weird ones, isn't it? Because it's the last game of the season and it's been moved basically for telly reasons. And
well, I think Sutton we could watch on the iFollow last year, if I remember correctly.
But I think that was linked to the whole royal coronation thing and the fact that they realised fans were being put out by it. So I'm not 100% on this one. To be honest, I think there's probably a half. We'll discuss it in a minute anyway. We'll cover that in a minute. But I think it's the first time you've been on since after, because you were on for the free game review. I think it was the Charlton preview the last time you were on, possibly.
Yes, it will have been. So it's not been brilliant since I've been away. But we've all been away, to be fair. I've had a nice time away. I've been in Rome.
Oh, so very nice.
Was keeping updated with the Barnsley game in a restaurant in a much more nice place than Brunton Park is at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair to say. Right, well, we'll get straight into it. So obviously this episode we haven't got a game to review because me and Mike did a free game review. If you haven't seen that, go and check it out. It's in the usual feed for the podcast episodes. So what we're going to do, we're going to do your listener questions again. We've got a few in for this one. Thank you very much for everyone who sent them in. Some good ones in there as well. We'll cover them. Then we'll obviously have the usual behind enemy line section, and then we'll do a little preview ourselves of the Stevenage game before we round things up with the X-Files section. So before we get into that, just a reminder, the sponsor of this podcast this season, once again, is the Carlisle United Sports Club London branch. Big thank you to them for their support this season. They do lots of fantastic stuff for the club in terms of fundraising, but also for XLs, they do stuff in terms of arranging away travel and tickets for away games and obviously designated pubs and that kind of thing. So really spot on people. If you want to find out more about them, go and join to their website, carlisle.org. You don't have to live in the southeast or London if you want to join up. You can live in Timbuktu. Everyone get your bingo card out. They're straight in there with that one, but there you go. Right, let's get into it then. There's only one little bit of news to cover, and we actually just covered it off the top of the show there. So the final game of the season, that has been shifted. It's been moved forward to 12:30pm on the final day, this Saturday, the 27th of April. As you mentioned, Adam, for those travelling down from Cumbria, a little bit frustrating. I think you can still do it. I think it's still possible.
Yeah, it's not as bad as getting down to London.
Absolutely, but it's still not ideal. I think you can do it for £60 return roundabout, which is not that cheap, but it's both better than nothing. How many people are going to want to go down to just get relegated? I don't know, but we'll have to see. But
Well, at the start of the season, I was thinking, if we're safe or we might be safe on the day, I was like, we're probably not going to get much more or many more chances to go down to Pride Park. But the state we're in, I just don't think it's worth it personally.
No, well, I'll be going because it's a local one to me, so I might as well.
It's not too far.
It's not too far away. All League One fixtures are going to kick off at the same time on the last day at 12:30. And I'd imagine Sky usually show one or two of the games live. And looking at where Derby are on the table, there's every chance, if they stutter a little bit, they might need the points to secure a top two finish. So I'd imagine there's a half-decent chance our game might be live on Sky as well, which is... Yeah. Seeing us get humiliated on national TV is not exactly my idea of fun, but
I know. Well, because we're the week before the championship finishes, I think I'm right in saying. So that's why we've got more of a chance of being on Sky Sports.
It's a very weird one, that one, though, isn't it? Because you'd think with it being Euros somewhere, the championship would finish a week earlier. Very baffled me why it's finishing a week later. It's a strange one.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it. No, that's true, yeah.
Plus, there's also a risk if Coventry beat Man United and got to the FA Cup final, Coventry could still make the playoffs in the Championship. And if that's the case, technically they'd have to play 2 games in the space of 48 hours. Yeah, 2 days, which is insane, really.
Well, 24 hours.
24 hours, yeah, technically, yeah.
Because it'd be the 5th and the 6th of May.
Yeah.
No, it should be later than
that. End of May. It's the end of May.
Last
weekend of May. So it's a very strange one, that one, but there you go. Yep, so that's pretty much covered the news section. There's nothing else to cover. Simmer's mentioned the fact we're very close to announcing the academy manager. I imagine they'll probably announce that tomorrow after we've recorded, as is usually the case on these things. Yeah. So, as we mentioned, we haven't got a match to review because we've already done the last 3 games. So we're going to take our listener questions. Thank you very much for everyone for submitting them in. Really appreciate it. So we'll just bash straight through them, shall we, Adam? Let's go from the top here. So Will Ashworth asked this question. I thought this is a really interesting one, this one. What is the worst take you've seen from Carlisle fans this season? Mine would be, this is Will saying this, mine would be those who think money is all it takes to sign players. That's not a bad shout, that. I'd say the worst take was probably the person who suggested we could finish mid-table in their pre-season predictions. 12th. What kind of an idiot would do that?
Yeah, I know.
That'd be
me.
So yes, so basically it was my take. I'd say genuinely probably is the worst. I put my hands up there and say that I thought we were going to recruit a little bit better towards the end of the window. It didn't quite work out, but there you go. But what do you reckon on this one then, Adam?
I could probably maybe not equal that because you'd take quite an effort to equal that. But in the old video I did when we signed Luke Armstrong, said it was going to transform the club, which in part ways it has, because it now means that we're going to get charged more because people know we've got the money to spend for players. But unfortunately, he's not had the desired effect or the effect that I thought he might have had. But I was trying to think of... I don't think I've seen any ones that are like... Because some of them that are too outrageous are too outrageous. Like, you just look at them and think, that can't be someone being actually serious. So it sort of passes over you a bit. But in fairness, I can't think off the top of my head of any one particular one that's really stood out.
The only ones I can think of, there's a few people who've suggested that the Piatex didn't do enough in January in terms of supporting Simpson and getting players in, which is utter nonsense. The backing he's been given was ridiculous, and it links back to what Will said there, though. There's no guarantee that money that players will come in. That's a simple fact, because where we are on the table will have a big effect on whether people will sign for us.
Yeah, and we're guilty as fans of forgetting that it's a job for these players. They've got to consider other reasons outside of money. So I mean, thankfully I didn't see anybody at the time claiming that they hadn't done enough. That's just a ridiculous comment.
Yeah, it is, and it's interesting that it's not a take, but I suppose it's the sort of thing that I've seen is that, and I said this before. I said it on the BBC podcast that. I just get this feeling there's a section of our support who thought the second that the takeover happened, all our ills would disappear and it would, like a magic wand would wave and we'd suddenly be a brilliant club and brilliant team. I still think long term we can be great, but that was never ever going to happen overnight. And I think some people have been very unrealistic with that. But that's not so much a take, that's more a sort of mindset I think people have had. But there you go. On to the next one. Mark James. Predict one current non-Carlisle player you think will be playing for us next season. I think what Mark's suggesting here is predict one player out there who you think we will sign in the summer. We'll bring in.
Right.
What do you reckon?
Well, this is actually quite timely because I believe I have an article coming out at the weekend which sort of covers a potential dream window for the Blues. I will try and remember who was on that list quickly, and you can give your names. Right.
Well, this may be more a wish list than anything. I'd like to see us. There's a lad I know we were tracking a while back. He was at Fleetwood and he's gone back to Altrincham. Chris Clark, I think his name is.
He's on that list.
Well, he's one I know we've been tracking him in the past. So he's the one I predict because he's a good winger, and we're going to need wingers in the summer, I imagine. So that's my prediction. I think him. I know who I'd like us to sign, but I'm going to save that for one of the other questions. I think there's other ones where we can we can do that. But yeah, Chris Clark from Altrincham, he's done really well there. He was at Fleetwood. I think he'd signed for Fleetwood from them, and then went back to Altrincham, and he's really tearing it up in the National League. And a lot of people are going to be like, oh, we need to be signing top-end League One players. I think we should be looking at players who are excelling in the National League as much as anything.
The gap between League Two and the National League has shrunk so much that, look at players like Camille Conte, who's gone to... He's now at Bristol Rovers, obviously. Joined Grimsby from some team in the National League. I can't remember who. But he's now a established, solid League One player. I know Port Vale aren't doing too well, but they've got Jesse Deborah as well. Peterborough, a lot of their recruitment comes from the National League, so I think it's a smart way to go about things, and it is a bit of an older, understandable mindset, because it's only a switch that's happened recently. But the National League is producing a lot of good players now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, is Chris Clark the one you're going to pick, or are you going to pick another one from your list?
No, I'll go for someone else. Another player who actually is from the National League, very on topic, is a lad called Connor Barrett, he plays for AFC Fylde. He's a right back. Because the important thing, especially for Carl this season, we're going to lose Finn back because he's going to go back to Nottingham Forest. Obviously, there's a chance we could try and re-sign him. And Josh Emanuel's contract's also set to expire in the summer. So, as things stand, the only right back option we'll have is Jack Ellis.
Yeah.
And I think if Simpson's going to continue with this 3 at the back system, then we're going to have creative fullbacks. And Connor Barrett, 22 years old, I think he's got 7 assists for AFC Fylde this season in the National League. I can't remember. He used to be at Burnley, so he was at Burnley's academy and has dropped down to the National Leagues, and is doing pretty well there. So he's one of the names on the list, but there's a few other interesting takes for people in that article, so stay tuned for that one.
Interesting. Well, the next question I've got on the list I'm going to leave to a little bit later, because it's a little bit more of a lighter question. I'll go to Jim CUFC's question. Come the end of the season, the squad clearly needs an overhaul. Which players do we keep / offer new contracts, and who's out the door? And I'll come to you've got 2 more questions after that, but I'll come to them next. But I'm going to be honest with you. At the moment, of those who are out of contract, the only ones I'd keep are probably Kilsby and Nugent. That sounds brutal, but I think I'd just keep the 2 young lads. That's literally the only ones I think I'd keep.
He's got, I'm pretty sure, is there not a club option? Yes, they can just extend him whenever they want. It's only really...
I'm not sure. No, there isn't one for Kilsby, because he's already extended.
Yeah, but I'm saying he's the only one he's the one of the 2 that they actually have to offer a contract to, whereas Nugent they can just extend whenever they want, if they do want to, which they really should do. I actually did an article about, if the attendance this weekend, because of the offer for tickets, if it continues to be a bit flat or even get lower, then it's a bad sign for the club. And I listed in it all the players that are out of contracts or leaving at the end of their loans and stuff like that. And I think it's 13 of the current squad. And like you say, there's not many of them that I'd look to offer a contract to. Even someone like Hunt, I don't think he'll get offered a contract just because of the stage of the career he's at and the fluctuating starts and all that sort of stuff. I don't see. Although I think he'd be handy to have, potentially, if someone who's going to be on a decent wage package, I think they might steer clear of him.
I'm looking at. I've managed to find a list that someone else I know did. Holy's gone. I don't really accept that. I think Corey Whelan's gone. That's to be expected.
Well, that's pretty much confirmed.
Emmanuel, I just haven't seen enough, to be honest, and it's been quite disappointing. He might actually feature in one of the other answers we're going to give in a minute. Sean Maguire, not seen enough to convince me he's worth a deal.
No.
I think the one, I'm looking at this list, obviously, Kilsby and Nugent, I think the 2 we both sort of in agreement that we probably should keep, just because if we're going to have a bigger squad, you need to have young players like that on the fringes who can come in and, feature. Jordan Gibson's the one that really throws up a debate. There's clearly ability there. I'll be honest with you, I think for his own good, he should probably go somewhere else and maybe try a fresh start.
I cannot see a world in which he signs a new contract here.
No, I don't think he will. But I think for his own, I think for his own good, he should go somewhere else and experience playing for another club. There's nothing wrong with that sometimes, of just having a fresh start. I think somewhere else he might find he fits in a little bit better. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some of the sort of lower end League One clubs interested in him because he's shown he can
just
put
take
the
a punt
ability.
on him. Yeah,
they'll take
even any one of the maybe not one of the clubs that are coming up from League Two, but maybe one of the clubs who just about like a Burton or Shrewsbury, for example, who are probably just above the relegation thing but need a bit more quality. Just taking a punt on him.
He's from around that part of the world, isn't he? He's based in Walsall, I think, or near Walsall. So I mean, a club in the Midlands would be ideal for him, especially he's got a young kid now, isn't he? So I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up at a club like that. But yeah, it's not a case that I don't think he's good enough. I think he just needs a fresh start. And I think he needs to go somewhere where he's going to play probably a bit more often. And I think Simo's just not convinced by him. So, yeah, our feeling, to be honest, mate, is, Jim, get rid of most of them. And it sounds harsh. I'd probably look at some of the ones under contract potentially and think, are you worth keeping? You know, it sounds terrible, but yeah.
That's going to be. I think that's going to be the toughest part of the summer window is actually being able to move on the players that Simpson potentially wants to move on.
Yeah.
Because we can sort of start to get a bit of an indication as to who that might be based on who's getting picked and things like that. So maybe players like Sam Lavelle, who a lot of fans maybe want to see go, but he's almost definitely going to stay around.
And to be honest, I think Lavelle will be all right in League Two. I think he will.
I think he will be too. Just it's such a different type of player that he's got to deal with in League One compared to League Two.
Yeah,
in terms of ability and physicality, it's on another level. So I think I'm not going to make some bold prediction that he's going to, captain us to a League Two promotion like he did with Morecambe. I'm right in saying that he did do it with Morecambe, didn't he?
I can't remember if he was the captain or not. I think you might be right. I think he was. Yeah,
he was in that team, and he's quite
he was
quite a big leader in the squad. But no, I think like you said, I think he'll be better suited to that level.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at some of the others. I mean, it's hard to judge. I mean, someone like Jaden Harris might be moved on basically just because for his own benefit. He's not going to develop quickly enough, probably. So let him go somewhere else and see how he does. Two more questions from Jim. We'll quickly go through. Which players in the surrounding leagues should we look to snap up? We sort of covered that slightly. We sort of said in terms of National League, there's a couple of players down there as well. We could potentially look at. There was a lad playing for Halifax last night, the number 9 against Chesterfield. Chesterfield blew the chance of going up, and I can't remember his name is, and he looked a really tidy player. I really like the look of him. I'm going to look up who he is right now while we're talking. But yeah, there's a few players. I mean, we could go back and look at some of the players who are out of contract at the bottom end of League One and potentially pick a few of the better ones off.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
We're going to be offering
well, a couple of them are included in my list. So,
there you go.
Like I said, keep your eyes peeled for that. But I think one of the main areas we're going to benefit from the new ownership this summer is loan fees and how much we can pay for players, because we'll be able to get like the young players that may be coming through at like the decent championship clubs that are like just not quite ready to be in the first team and playing at the first team level but need minutes. It's not like an under 21 from a Premier League team where they've like had probably very little actual men's football experience. So I think getting those top championship loanees, people like Kamara, who's at Portsmouth, Josh Coburn, who was at Bristol Rovers from Middlesbrough, people like that, that's somewhere where Carl will have to be at the forefront of those conversations. Yeah,
I'm just looking here. So it's Robert Harker is the name of the player. He actually made his debut for Bury as a 16-year-old back in 2016. Right. So he was a young prodigy. Didn't quite. I think he went to Burnley and just didn't quite make it there. And he's looking at his stats. This is Wikipedia, so it might not be 100% accurate, but it says 49 appearances for Hartlepool for Halifax and 12 goals. So pretty decent little player. I really like the look of him. The clips I've seen last night from him. So he's what I'd definitely have a look at possibly as well. The only other thing that Jim asked was Mellish for captain. I love John. I think he's a great player. I'd rather he just concentrated on being the player he is. I think there's other players who are probably better suited to being the captain. But he's one of those ones who could step in and do it occasionally, when other players are out suspended maybe. I'm sure he'd take a lot of pride in it, especially. because we know how much he loves playing for the club. So yeah, I think personally probably not for me.
Yeah, I'd echo that too. I don't see him being like that sort of leader of the dressing room who's going to go over and calmly speak to the ref when something goes wrong. That's not the type of player John Mellish is, and I don't want him to be that player, frankly.
Yeah, he's a wind-up merchant. That's what we want him to be. And I was going to leave this one till the end to one of the lighter, funny questions, but it kind of moves in quite nicely from the last question just then. Josh Trafford, who's a cousin of James, he's a listener and a Blues fan. He said, "Who would you rather fight in UFC, John Mellish or Harrison Neal?" Now, my thoughts on this, I don't really follow UFC that much, but I've seen enough of it to sort of get an idea. I think Neal would be tough. He looks a big, strong, physical lad. But one thing I say about Harrison Neal, he's not a quick mover. I've heard some suggestions he's got the turning circle of an oil tanker, which I think is a little harsh. But he's not the quickest. John Mellish just runs about like a nutter. I'd hate to fight Big John. I think Big John would be a nightmare in the old octagon, I think it is, isn't it, that they're fighting in the UFC?
It is. So I do follow the UFC quite closely. I'm one of those people that gets up at 3 a.m. to watch it. You can call me barbaric or whatever adjective you want to use to describe that behaviour, but I enjoy it, so leave me be. And I would agree with your analysis. John Mellish, that engine and that mental character would not be the sort of person you want to be standing across from inside of an octagon. Whereas, like I said, Harrison Neal's got a bit of, he'll snap into a challenge, but the worry with Mellish would be, even if you were very good at fighting, you'd hit him a ridiculous amount of times.
And he would be totally unaware of it.
Yeah, and he just wouldn't care at all. He'd just keep walking forward, and he would not be arsed. And that's probably one of the worst realisations, probably for a fight with someone like, shit, this is going to keep going until I can't go anymore because he's not going to stop.
Tell you who I think looks like he should be a UFC fighter in the squad. I'm not saying about physical size, but just his appearance. I think Luke Armstrong looks like he should be a UFC fighter. I don't know why.
He's got that sort of Nordic look, doesn't he? I see what you mean.
Yeah, I could see him being a UFC fighter. Right, back onto a sensible question. Alistair Paisley. Should Kelly and Armstrong be the strike partnership for next season, or do we need to sign another striker in the building to compete with them? There's another question about targeting players from League One clubs, which we'll cover in a sec. But the problem is we don't know yet because we haven't seen him play. So yeah. I'm relying on clips I've seen. He seems a bit more of a snibber than Armstrong is. I think he's more likely to be, taking those poachers' chances. Whereas I think Armstrong has to fight a lot more for his opportunities, and I think he's going to do a lot more of the donkey work. I'm not saying Kelly won't, but it'd be interesting to see what they're like as a partnership, because you'd be having a 6'4" and a 6'2" striker up front, big and physical. I don't think many sides would like facing up against that, would they?
No, we've got to plead ignorance because we just don't know what Kelly's going to be like. But I do think, I remember hearing Chris Lumsden say that he'd actually like to see Armstrong as the one who's he's the one at the moment who's having to hold the ball up because there's literally no other option to do it, and then he's offloading it to, Diamond or whoever's around him. But it will be interesting to see if we can get someone in to allow Armstrong to be the one who's actually running onto balls, because a lot of the goals he scored for Harrogate were balls in behind where he's running at goal and just has to, finish a one-on-one. So if Kelly can be that sort of player, just looking at his sort of stature, I don't see him as that sort of striker, but I could be completely wrong. We're going to find out, hopefully, in the last few weeks of the season.
Yeah.
But I think even if those two are going to be a strike partnership, I'd still like to see someone who's a bit of a different profile brought in, because even though they might be doing different jobs, Armstrong and Kelly, they're still sort of quite similar in build and physical ability and things like that. So I'd maybe want someone who's a different option, because that's what we've really lacked this season. And
being realistic, we're not going to sign JJ Coyote permanently now. Just
not a chance.
Just looking at my fingers themselves, it's not. Like I said it before, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him play for us this season again. I just think that we've written that one off and just said, look, just go back to Rotherham and just look after yourself. Whatever. Good luck.
And we've got to be aware of Kelly's injury history as well.
Yeah.
It's not brilliant, so there has to be, to answer Alison's question, to have another striker compete with him. I think it's essential, because at some point we can't rely on Armstrong to do what he's been doing currently, because it's just going to wear him down. Eventually, it's going to take its toll.
Yeah. Also, he asked, which club from League One do you guys think Carlisle should target for next season to try and sign players from? So he's not said specific players. He knows which club do you reckon is ripe for us to go and pinch a couple of players potentially from? I mean, it's got to be a bottom half team, you'd think.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. Unless you're going for like fringe players who just want to drop down for minutes. I think a team, even though they're probably going to get relegated with us, a team like Fleetwood and things like teams that are getting relegated with us who we can outpay for players, I think that's probably going to be a smart and well-used avenue by Carlisle. But in terms of teams above that, I just don't... I know we've got the money, but I just don't... Yeah,
there's a lot of players.
Well,
terrible at that,
it seems like they're going to get things sorted, which will be good for them. But yeah, I don't see us having the pull of, like, I don't know, maybe like a... Well, I was going to say...
We might be able to pinch the odd player here and there, maybe,
yeah.
It's just not so much like loads. The only one I think of is maybe look at Northampton and a couple of the lads they've had on loan there. The lad from Fulham, Bowie, and who's the other lad they had on loan as well? They've got some good players in Northampton.
You're not thinking of Mark Leonard, are you, the centre mid?
Leonard, yeah.
From Brighton. There's not a chance he's coming down to League. If anything, he's getting
probably
bought by
not.
Championship teams. That's a minimum.
Probably not.
That boy, he's special.
I would have a look at Northampton because they've got one or two good players in there that potentially, I don't know whether we could outbid them potentially for them, possibly. But at the end of the day, like you said, it'll be a challenge to guess. I mean, I'm looking even down there. Is there anyone I really fancy from Shrewsbury or Burton? Not particularly, to be honest. So I think you're right. Fleetwood have got some actually quite good young players there. They might be the club you look at and think, right, is there potentially anyone there we could actually poach and bring into us for next season? I don't know. I imagine it looks like that. I think the bottom three is going to stay as it is, maybe in a slightly different order. And then it's obviously in terms of above that, Cheltenham have got a good chance of staying up because their form's been fantastic. Well, actually, it's been poor actually last 5 games. Yeah, before that it was pretty good, to be fair. But yeah, there you go.
Sort of sidetracking off of that question, is there a specific club? I've got one in mind for this question. A club you'd want to see Carlisle sort of model their approach off of?
Peterborough United.
Who are in that's exactly what I was thinking.
Northern version of Peterborough United. We might not quite have the same cash to spend that they've had down the years with McAntony, but if we slowly build ourselves up towards that, 100% they're the ones I'd like to do. But a sort of mix of them and maybe Exeter as well in terms of bringing through the young players. I'd like a sort of merge of sort of the two. Bring through the young players like Exeter, but pick off the good non-league talent. Like Peterborough tend to pick up the non-league talent from the south. If you look at it generally, there's so much ripe, especially in the northeast, for us potentially to go and say, actually, is he any good? Like, go Gated. Look at some of the players they've got. They've had some players scoring a lot of goals again for them this season. There's plenty of options there that we could possibly get players from. So yeah, good question that one, Adam. Well done.
I'm a journalist,
right.
So
as you should. So. Yeah, exactly. You should hope so. Your training should tell you to. Right, Luke Graham. How many players would you like to see come in during the summer? I can't really put a number on this. For me, I think a squad of first team players at least of about 22. And then beyond that, I want them to be players who are like under 20, basically, like under, your Killsbys, your Nugents, maybe one or two more to pad it out just as potential options if we need. If there's a couple, I don't know if there's anyone in the youth team that's potentially going to get a deal. I'm not sure. Anton Dudek possibly is another one you'd want to keep as well in that sense as well. So
I think I think he's been promising in the games that he's played. So I don't see why they wouldn't.
No, I
they don't want to be in the position where they let him go and he goes somewhere else and he develops into that thing for what he's going to cost. Probably
no, he's not
worth
expensive, is he? I think,
exactly.
I think he'll likely stay, to be honest. But what would you say in terms of numbers? A specific number you put it on? Would you just?
It links into the question of how many players do you expect to lose. I think we'll probably lose at least a dozen.
Yeah.
So I'd say, at least 12 players, I think, is what they need to build. And they don't have to all be... Obviously, we'd like them to be all sort of starting calibre players, but you can have or you can afford to have if you're confident in the fitness and the quality of the rest of your team. You can afford in League Two to have a Jaden Harris, who's just sort of a bit of a project of someone who could be someone really good, but it's a bit of a punt. 12 players would probably be the ideal number. I was just trying to think of how many we brought in last summer. Was it about...
January's the one where we were the second highest, I think, behind maybe Charlton, possibly, I think, or someone like that, I think. So yeah, there was quite a few in the summer, wasn't it? When you look at the squad turnover, actually been quite high in the last few seasons, but there you go. Richard Wilson, this is a good question, this. There's two good questions, actually. Who should be the starting goalkeeper for next season? And do you think next season's League Two in general will be stronger or weaker than the standard we got promoted against last term? On the first one, what's your thought? I mean, we're working on the presumption here. In fact, we know for a fact the two keepers next season are going to be Lewis and Breeze, and then maybe one more keeper. So it might be a young keeper to potentially, as a third choice backup, and maybe an experienced keeper. I don't know. We don't know yet. But
I think they'd want to bring in someone, because I think they'd maybe want to have the option to loan out Breeze to develop him if they can.
Possibly.
Harry Lewis is going to be the starting goalkeeper next season.
Should he be?
I don't see... Yes, because you've committed this money to him. You have to stick with it. I know, obviously, there's the personal, emotional connection to Gabe Breeze and the fact that he's come through the academy and he's done all right in the few games, but and I get that Harry Lewis has had some bad mistakes, especially as of late. There's been some, especially in the last few games, where you look at and go, God, you've really got to be saving them. If you're being bought as the sort of number one goalkeeper for a team that's a number one goalkeeper, not just for now, but for potentially the future too. But I think that's partly to do with confidence, and goalkeeping such a confidence position. He came into a team like all the other January signings did, which was extremely low on confidence and quality. So I think it has to be Harry Lewis. One, because I think he actually probably is a better goalkeeper than Gabe Breeze, but also if you're Paul Simpson, you have to stick. If you back down in the summer and bring somebody else in or give Gabe Breeze that starting position, you're going to look like a right idiot.
No, I 100% agree with you. I'd agree with you. I'd stick with him. You make a really good point about the whole lack of confidence coming into the squad. And actually, with a goalkeeper, some goalkeepers the goalkeeping role is different for certain players. There can be a goalkeeper at a lower end Premier League club who can look fantastic in terms of making loads of brilliant saves week in, week out, because he's getting his goal peppered. But then he has to go up to like a top class club, and he's not actually involved in the game that much anymore. And it's all about how he can distribute the ball out, but also he has to be concentrating, because it sounds ridiculous, but it's much easier to concentrate when you know for a fact you're going to be facing loads of shots all the time. If you know you're only going to face the odd shot here and there, it's a different sort of game. And I kind of feel with Lewis, he's going to be better in a team with a much more solid defence in front of him and a stronger team. And actually, I think you'd see the best out of him. And also, I think actually his distribution with the ball out from his feet is going to make a massive difference to us next season as well, potentially. You might see a different way we play. We've already started to see little signs of it in the last couple of months. We're trying to play it out a little bit more.
We just don't have the quality in the team to do it.
No, absolutely. But hopefully that's where the difference will come in the summer when we bring one or two players in to strengthen the squad. So 100% I would stick with Lewis. I agree with you on that one. And to get Gabriel, I'd probably get him out into a National League club if we can, at least for a little bit. So, but there you go. The question about League Two. Sorry, go on.
Oh, go on. The one thing that I really hope is clear from the recruitment is that they have a plan of how they want to play and how they want the squad to look, and they stick to it, instead of being just, he's a good player, he'll work. I want to see them implement a plan as to, we're getting this player because he fits into our system, and we're going to put him in a position that's going to, like you say with Lewis, highlight his attributes and minimise his weaknesses. Because I don't think that's been too evident, especially last summer. It wasn't like, you can see what they're building here. If I can see what they're doing and trying to do, that's at the point where I can forgive them for maybe not starting straight away, because I can see what they're trying to do. And that's what I think, not just me, but I think a lot of fans would appreciate seeing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, League Two next season, do you think it's lining up to be stronger or weaker than the one we got promoted from?
I don't know.
Do you know how I'd look at it? I wouldn't look at it so much from the season that we got promoted. I'd look at it from the current season. I think it's going to be weaker than the current League Two season, simply because you're losing 3 big hitters in Wrexham, Stockport, and arguably Mansfield, because Mansfield are well backed. And look at the number of goals they scored; it's ridiculous. If you then lose at MK Dons and a Notts County, you're also fairly well backed. You've lost 4 big hitters there.
Notts County aren't going up.
Probably not. That they've probably bottled in now. To be fair, with the managerial change. But let's say MK. I haven't even looked at the table recently, so I should have looked at
MK Dons are up there. There's Crewe, Walsall, Barrow up there. We don't want them going up.
I mean, if Gillingham's stuck in there as well, they've been pretty well backed.
Yeah.
Potentially, then you look at it. Our spending power's bigger than most of them. I know people will say, "Oh, but Salford are clearly not going to be spending as much as they have done in recent seasons. They've clearly cut back in the last couple of years."
Yeah, because they've had to.
Yeah, exactly. Carl Robinson's a good manager for them, but still, I don't know. For me, you then got Chesterfield coming up, who obviously are going to be a big spender because we know they are, and the rest of the National League clubs potentially coming up. None really there terrify me. So, yeah, based on the current League Two season, I think it will be weaker. Compared against when we went up, I don't know. It's a hard one.
I think it'll be stronger than the one we went up in. I look at how good we were, and how good Bradford were, and we were 2 of the playoff teams. We weren't good, especially near the end of the season, we weren't that good really, and Bradford were worse. Which it shouldn't be a surprise that they are where they are now. Whereas I think there will still be, one of Crewe and MK Dons and things like that, teams like that, aren't going to go up. So there's still going to be that quality at the top of the near the top of the league who are probably going to improve and want to go again, a bit like sort of Mansfield have done for many years. I mean, it's unbelievable they haven't gone up before now. They've threatened to do it so many times. Yeah. But I think it'll be a stronger league than the one we came up in, surely.
I mean, one of my dream signings would be that Davis Killiardon. He's what I'd love to see. Yeah, he's from the North East as well, but I think he's got another year in his contract there, so I don't think that's very likely, unfortunately.
No, not at all.
But there you go. Right, next question. Grant Davidson, with all the developments in the East Stand, do you think there will be plans to put in place to finally move the pitch and develop the waterworks in Warwick? I think long term, maybe yes. The question is, what is the solution for the waterworks, and as much as anything, because of the flood bank there now, you're very limited to what you can do. You might have to do a stand on stilts almost. It's quite high up, and do something a little bit different there. To be honest, I'd make it into a small stand that's all seated or whatever, and just make that into the away end. I know Simmer's not a big fan of having fans behind the goal, but I'd just do that just so we can have the whole of that East Stand. And move it back, but then obviously you've got the issue with the Neil standards there, which limits what you can do. So whether we keep the Neil Sports Centre or not, I don't know. Once we've got the new training ground, but yeah, there's options there possibly. The Warwick Road End is the interesting one as well there, because obviously the original plans for that were the club were going to buy all those houses on the front and knock them down and create like a plaza onto Warwick Road, around the Warwick Road End. That obviously wasn't likely in past seasons because we just didn't have the money. Now, if we get ourselves established and get into a good position, there's always the option there potentially to do that, And then what you do then is you build this stand where you can actually put offices and things like that into that stand, and people can rent them out and that kind of thing. And it feels a bit more like a big open ground, doesn't it? Interesting to see what they do. I think it's likely, but I think you're more likely to see all the changes to the East Stand and the main stand before that. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, definitely. This isn't my area of expertise by any means, so I'll sort of lean on what you said there. It all comes down to the restrictions that they have around the ground, just because of teams like Colchester, who have a ground in the middle of nowhere. They can do what they want, really. Yeah. But because we're city centre, and I do love the fact that we're city centre, because I think it just makes it so much nicer. Imagine if we'd have moved out to Kingstown, whatever the plans were to move out to Kingstown, that would have been horrendous. Yeah. But I think there is limitations, but I think the Piatics look at it and go, I don't care. We're going to do it. If we can do it, we can do it, and we're going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. McCarlisle has asked, will Simpson keep the 5 at the back, which has so spectacularly failed this season in League Two, where it worked for half a season? No, it failed this season. Let me start the question again. Sorry. Will Simpson keep the 5 at the back, which has so spectacularly failed this season, when we're back in League Two, where it works for half a season, which I think is a bit harsh. I think it worked for all the season personally, but we just didn't play very well. Only to have to change it again if we're promoted back up again. Good question, this one. I always thought originally one of the big reasons for playing that was you got the best out of John Mellish and the positive attacking impact he had. But actually, I think he's shown this season in a couple of games he can play in a back 4. He's fine. He's actually fairly comfortable with that. We never really looked overrun when we played a back 4 with him in there. It depends on the recruitment over the summer, really, doesn't it? It's interesting to see what he does. If he's targeting someone like Jack Diamond already, I suspect he wants to play a 4-3-3 next season, or maybe a 4-2-3-1 or something like that, possibly. Mm-hmm. So, interesting to see what he does there.
I don't think the problem is necessarily with the back 5. I don't think it's the formation itself. I think it's the way you deploy it and the people who you put into it.
Yeah.
Because last season we got a lot of chances created from wing backs getting forwards and, Mellish overlapping or underlapping and getting high up the pitch and creating chances from those wide areas. And this season, I'm pretty sure I was looking at it for some research I was doing. I think Armour's maybe got 1 assist, and obviously Robinson's got assists too. But not one of our right wing backs / right backs has got a single assist this season. Not one.
Yeah.
Which is, for a team that plays predominantly 3 central defenders and wing backs, horrendous, because that's part of your attack is the wing back getting forward, getting crosses in, being creative. So,
I mean, once again this season, it's like last season, we've had 4 different wing backs play, haven't we? When you think about it.
Yeah.
You've had back Ellis, Barkley for a bit as well, and Emmanuel. And it's not... At times they've been fullbacks as well, which hasn't helped, and none of them's really had a long run in the team, and that's the problem, I think. You're right. It's getting that position. It's going to be a big challenge in the summer. So, yeah, I think we generally think it really depends on the recruitment as much as anything who he brings in. So we'll have to wait and see with that one.
And that links back to what I was saying about having a vision and having a plan of your recruitment of this is the direction we're going to go in, and we're going to commit to it. If we can see from the players we're bringing in that we're bringing in a really attacking right back or wing back, and we're bringing in athletic central defenders who can cover for that, so you can get players. If we can see what's going on, then we can excuse some times where it goes wrong because we can justify it. Whereas currently we can't justify it because we don't know what they're trying to do. And that's probably the most annoying part with all these losses is there's nothing you can hold on to. Whereas at least if we can see a plan, then it's something you can go, okay, let's see what they do at least.
Yeah, definitely. Right, let's bash through a few more. Michael Grace has said, would you keep Diamond for next season? And if so, where would you play him and in what formation? I'm still a little bit on the fence about this one. But I always have to remind myself the mitigating factors of obviously having not played for so long and having to come fresh into a team that was struggling can't have been easy. And I have seen flashes that show he's a good player, and we know what he can be a good player. We've seen it at Harrogate. He's out of contract in the summer. He's obviously going to be looking for a new club because Sunderland are not likely to renew his contract. Yeah, I would. I think I probably would keep him because I think he could be a real quality player in a team that's playing well in League Two. And I think most likely as a winger in a 4-3-3, personally, is where I'd probably play him. But I think he could probably easily play in a 4-2-3-1 as well, just behind the front man possibly. But there's plenty of options there with him. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think he's quite sort of neat enough in terms of his vision to play as a proper number 10. Yeah. Maybe more so playing just like sort of off the striker where he is now, where he's, getting onto knockdowns and things like that, and then dribbling at the defence. But yeah, if he's available for next season, he wants to come. 100% I would sign him, because he's going to be as good in terms of pure quality as any player in League Two next season.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott Hartley, this is a really good question, like this one. Which player has disappointed you, maybe not lived up to the expectations the most this season?
Sean Maguire. Those first few games, when we really didn't look like we were going to create anything, there was moments where he was making really clever runs, and he just wasn't being found. And it just seems like it's got to the point where he's just not bothered anymore about playing. But there was glimpses early on that he could be someone that really kickstarts things and sort of drags us through tough moments, and it's just not happened at all. So Sean Maguire, especially for the money he's probably on, Sean Maguire would be my candidate for that question.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shot. To be honest, there's so many you could pick here, really. I mean,
yeah, you could lucky dip it, and you can justify pretty much all of them.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Barkley is one I really thought, could actually kick on with us this season. And I don't think he's been that bad. I think he's had plenty of games where he's actually been all right, to be fair. So he's probably a harsh one to pick out. But like Finn Back, I really thought he would, and his injury issues there, but he's just not quite lived up to it. Josh Emmanuel, after that first game, I thought, wow, actually, we might have a really good player here, and he has not hit those heights in the slightest. I think I tend to agree with you, Sean Maguire. The only one I'd say is just, and it's not really his fault in a sense, is JJ Coyote. Biggest disappointment, because I really thought there's a player who could really make a difference to us, and to get him injured after 2 games and then it just seems impossible to get him fit since then. It's just really, really frustrating. So,
I think the differential between Coyote and Maguire is that we've seen Maguire and he's not been up to it, whereas we haven't seen. So there's nothing, we haven't looked at him and gone, he's just been bad. It's just luck and injury and fitness. So I wouldn't. But it is disappointing, but for different reasons.
In comparison, like Dan Butterworth, I never had that higher expectations with him compared against Sean Maguire. Maguire, I agree with you. Obviously, mitigating sort of circumstances of what happened with him last August, personal issues and stuff like that. But still, it just kind of feels like, you could see little glimpses of it, and it's never quite bubbled beyond the surface, has it really? Which is quite sad. Aldi Disco Pants. How long do we give Simo next season if results don't go as well as hoped / expected? Obviously they will, he says with his fingers crossed in emoji. It depends where we are on the table, really, as much as anything. We could have a slow start, but still possibly be up like in, your playoff positions, and maybe then you go, okay, just you give it time. Put it this way, if we're like mid-table come end of September, he's gone. If we were like sitting like 12th, I think 12th or lower, I think he's gone if we're that point. But,
yeah, I'd probably agree. And with the backing he's likely to get, I think that makes his rope for getting things wrong even shorter. Because it's even more, we've backed you. It gets to a certain point where we're like, right, we can't do this anymore. It's just not working. We've got to change.
Yeah.
So I think if we do have to be realistic in our expectations, because League Two is such a mental, hard to predict league. Like, look at Crawley. We all had them to go down rock bottom, and now I'm pretty sure they're in the playoff places or in and just around outside, them. Yeah. So it is a hard league to predict, but with the resources we've got available to us, if we're, like I say, below or in the lower half of the table after, I'd say maybe 15 games, something like that. Would that'd be probably past September, to be fair. That's the point where we've got
mid to late September. I'm thinking I think if at that point we're still like, let's say we're just outside the playoffs, 8th place, something like that, but very much in contention, you give it time, because there's going to be a lot of new players coming in. They will take time to settle, so you can't expect it always to be completely instant, the success. So there you go. We're on to some of the sort of softer and silly ones to finish up now. I'll go back to the one that Kyle Dixon actually sent it in to us. What do you think of a retro scarf day at Brunton Park in the future? So obviously we were having the retro shirt day that Kiosk have arranged for the Lincoln game over on Easter Monday. Retro scarf day. I wouldn't mind seeing that. It's interesting how that'll work, because I think a lot of people wear their old scarves anyway. I've got a scarf. My favourite scarf. I don't ever wear it again because I'm terrified of losing it. I've got 2 of them though. Actually, I probably should just take one of them. I've got one of the scarves from Wembley '95, one of the green and white ones, and it's obviously I don't think it's even an official scarf. I think it was one of the ones maybe sold outside. In fact, no, it is an official scarf. Sorry, and I love that scarf, but I don't wear it that often. To be honest, I like a nice thick warm scarf when I go to the football now. It's a bit sad and a bit old, but you don't really get them as much as football. They're very decorative, a lot of them these days, aren't they? So yeah,
I've got one Carlisle related scarf, but it's not even like you wouldn't see it and go like, oh, that's retro. It's just blue and white, and it's got the club's badge on the end of it or something like that. So I don't think I'd be able to contribute to any retro scarf day, but I think it would be good to see if people, you know, people who have got a good collection, maybe like you, who can bring them out for the day. The only thing is I just don't know how many people actually have a lot of retro scarves compared to retro shirts.
No, I think the retro shirt one works a little bit better. It would be interesting to see some of the shirts that are worn at the game. But I'm really want some proper rare ones to be worn. That would get me very excited to see them. So there you go. Nick Brown, regular contributor. He says, would you rather fight 200 duck-sized Simon Hackneys or one massive Kevin Gray? I mean, it's a good question. I need to have a real good think about this one, but I think duck-sized Simon Hackney. I reckon I go for the ducks because I reckon I just boot them. Like I just run around booting them. Whereas a massive Kevin Gray is just going to crush you at the end of the day. He's just going to stamp all over you. You've got no chance against a massive Kevin Gray. Although I'd imagine those 200 duck-sized Simon Hackneys are going to be really nippy and really quick, aren't they?
I'd take the ducks.
I'd take the ducks as well.
I'd take the ducks. One massive Kev Gray is not something that I want to be dealing with.
No.
I also don't want to be dealing with 200 duck-sized Simon Hackneys.
No.
But it's the in an odd way. I can't believe this is saying this. It's the preferred option of the two.
Yeah.
And it's not a question I thought I'd be answering today. But
no,
Nick, you've posed it, and it's an interesting one.
To be honest, I think I'd still prefer the 200 duck-sized Simon Hackneys over normal-sized Kevin Gray. So there you go. He did ask us also, who do you think will win the Liga Premier Malaysia this year? I have no idea, Nick. I don't know why you've asked me that question. So don't care. It's the answer. Final to the last two here. Regan says, have you ever thought of regularly releasing episodes? Think the fans would love it. Piss off, Regan, you cheeky bastard. Have you ever thought about...
I loved his report. I can't remember what it was to, but it was some clip of Birmingham fans chanting about like Rooney out or something like that after... Or was it last week when we said we couldn't do the podcast on the...
Yes. It was a bit...
He commented to that. I was like, that's brilliant.
Rooney time to go. I was like, you cheeky... But yeah, basically... Regan, have you ever thought about actually contributing a 6-second review again, like you used to? No? Okay, fair enough. And finally, Cameron Allenby says, give the people what they want. A Bugle halftime crossbar challenge. Never going to happen. Not a chance I'm going there to humiliate myself. You see the clip of me. There's not a chance I'm going up there. I'd fancy myself to do it, but I have no chance. My brother's done it. My brother Blayton's done it. He did it for the game. I can't remember which game it was. It might have been the Salford game last season. He's the clown who took his top off and was running around celebrating when he hit the bar. So yeah, my brother has done it. He very much enjoyed it. I'm also terrified of being one of those people who does it and then slips. But at the same time, I don't want to be one of those show-offs who wears football boots to do it. Not a chance. So
yeah, you've got to. It's a fine line with the footwear for a crossbar challenge, because you don't want to over prepare and look like a knob, but you don't want to risk, like you said, turning up in some flat shoes and landing on your arse.
So I mean, to be fair, Mike has done it before. I'm sure Mike has done something. He did it in the Huddersfield game, I think, in the trophy or something like that. I think he did it. So he's done something similar. So yeah, Mike has done it. Are you going to catch me doing it? Not a chance. So there you go.
I think my years of practicing at Clarksfield will stand me in good stead. Hours of just firing a flat ball at a wonky crossbar at Clarksfield.
Maybe we'll have a look next season, Cameron. Maybe you can join us, Cameron. I suppose he's a referee these days, Cameron, isn't he? So maybe he won't want to do it. But yeah, you can join us if you certainly fancy it. I think that's all the questions covered, isn't it? I think for now. So we'll take a short break. After the break, I will be speaking to Matt from the Stevenage FC Podcast as part of the Behind Enemy Lines section about this weekend's game. I mean, what a season they're having. We'll talk all about that. We'll talk about the slight dip in form they've had recently, and also how important Steve Evans is to them and their club. So yeah, we're back just after this break.
Hi, I'm John Halpin, and you're listening to the Brunton Bugle.
Yes, we're back from the break and we're into part 2 of this week's Brunton Bugle, which of course means it's time for Behind Enemy Lines, where we speak to the opposition podcast of the team that we're playing that weekend. And this weekend, we're speaking to Matt, who I genuinely think must be one of the most positive football fans I've ever met in my life in terms of doing these podcasts. Probably good reason, because his team are doing pretty well. It's Matt from the Stevenage FC Podcast. How are you doing, mate?
Lee, mate, absolute pleasure to be back on here. And do you know what? Just before we came on, I was thinking, my God, I remember that a year ago coming on, and someone would have said to me a year on, both our teams would have got promoted, and we'd be sitting here doing this right now. I'd have been over the moon. But yeah, absolutely ecstatic, mate. What a season! Still pinch myself that we were a League One team, to be honest. So to be up there and doing as well as we're doing is great. But it's good.
Before we get started, just tell us a little bit about your podcast and how it came about, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so a good few years ago actually, before it was the season kind of just before COVID, or the season of COVID when it stopped football. We didn't really have a podcast at the football club at the time. The last podcast was not running again, and I felt that the club was going into a bit of a new era, and it just needed a brand new podcast. So me and a couple of the chaps started the Stevenage Football Club podcast, contacted the club. The club said, "Yeah, go ahead, you can do all of that." And so we started it. We did it that year, and it was a very odd season because then football and life starts, and we were kind of on and off with it through COVID. And really oddly, when Steve took over, actually, we kind of said to ourselves, right, let's do the podcast, let's get it back on track and get going with it. And do you know what? I'm so happy we did, because since then we've had all this success, and probably the best success we've ever had as a football club. So yeah, the podcast has been great. We've had managers, we've had players on, we've had board of directors on, other fans on, and growing a community at the club with the podcast, which is great. But yeah, anyone that wants to go follow us, Twitter @TSSE Podcast. We with the team doing so well at the minute, we love to shove out loads of episodes. So if people want to go and give that a follow, that'd be great.
Good stuff. Right, well, let's get into it then. We spoke to you, I think, earlier in the season, if I remember rightly, before the game down at your place. And you seemed quite chuffed with the start you'd made. I think actually you went top after drawing with us that day, if I remember rightly. I mean, we did not deserve a point that day. You guys were so much better than us. But you were also quite realistic about your chances. Yet, here we are, 8 games left to play, and you've got a decent chance of making the playoffs in May. You must be absolutely delighted with how the season's gone. Surely this is better than you could have imagined how promotion would have gone.
Oh, 1,000,000%. I mean, it's really weird for us because, again, a lot of us will still pinching ourselves that we're in League One. So the fact that we're up there, it's a bit like, what is going on? But what a truly magnificent season. And look, it started back in the summer. We got promoted, and, that was an incredible year last year. Some great memories, and something we never thought we'd do after many years of being down the bottom. But, it really started in the summer when we had Steve Evans on the pod, kind of back in September time, actually, October, just after the start. He said that really on promotion day, the work for League One started. The recruitment started. And one thing that Steve said was, we've got a great group, but to do well in League One, you've got to upgrade your squad. So, preparation started behind closed doors for this season. It's what we did. We upgraded the side. We brought in a lot of top-level League One players that had kind of been getting in the playoffs, coincidentally, the last couple of years. Your Dan Butlers, your Nathan Thompsons, etc. Nick Freeman's have been promoted to the Championship with Wickham. So, the hard work started then. And as we did last season, have a good pre-season, get a good start. Momentum's key, momentum's everything. And we did that. We won our opening 3 games. We were in the top 3. And I think we lost 1 game in the opening 2 months. And, we really kind of forced our style early. And I think that's very important in this division. But It's been a truly remarkable season. 17 wins, 10 draws, 11 defeats on the board. It's been magnificent. And I think actually what I'm so proud about, it's not just staying up in League One and becoming a League One team. We've been in the top 6 the whole season. And I think after we got beat by Leyton Orient Saturday. It's the first time that we've dropped out. I think the top 6 since Steve's been here, actually, in terms of last season as well. And that is incredible. I mean, if someone would have said to us we'd have spent pretty much the whole season in the top 6 of League One, we would have just, never have believed us. So, yeah, it's been, and this is hard to say because last season was unbelievable. This has been, I think, for a lot of us, our favourite season in terms of playing in such a top division in England and doing as well as we're doing. So, can we get there? I believe so. It's going to be tough, but whatever happens, what a season we're at, and we're a League One team next season, which is the main thing.
That said, your current form has dipped off. I was going to say the last 4 games, but actually, if you go back, it's the last 10 games. You only won 2 of your last 10. In your last 6 games, you only scored 3 goals. What's happened to that goal scoring form as well, especially because you've got one of the top scorers in the division in your team, in Jamie Reid. Obviously, can't play this weekend because he's on international duty. But what's sort of gone wrong in these last 10 games or so? Is it just maybe caught up on you a little bit, maybe in terms of the quality of teams you're facing?
Yeah, good question. It's been something that was spoke about on our podcast, actually, because we went for a little blip about February time when we lost a couple of games, and we come out that blip winning a few games, got a couple of 1-0 wins in the bag against Wickham and Cambridge, and we just got us going again. We got a draw at Port Vale, which we should have won. The referee give us give the other team a penalty that day, and we felt hard done by. But we come out of that period winning games. We thought, all right, crack on now and see if we can go and get in the League One playoffs. But it's been difficult recently. I think goals, as you say, is a massive thing. Jamie Reid's got 17 in League One, second top goal scorer. And I think, really, we've just needed more goals from other areas of the pitch. And, as strikers normally go through, they go through spells of, not putting the ball in the back of the net as they've done for the large majority of the season. And in that period, we've just needed more players to step up for us and get a goal for themselves in the side. And that hasn't happened recently. And why that is, I think, Steve's changed a little bit of the system recently. There's been a change of players. We've given other players a go. And I think really if we'd have just kept a settled side, we probably would have come through the period a little bit better and been more consistent with our results. But it's just one of those things. I think that the suspensions haven't helped. And I think with Steve as well. And that's a very big suspension. Steve's missed the last 3 games. Because of his booking a good few games ago. And actually, I think that's had a little bit of an impact, him not being on the touchline. I think that's why we've, scored 1 goal in 3 and, 1 point in 3. So, yeah, look, it's been tough recently. Do I think we'll respond? I do. I think the players we've got, I think the manager we've got, that they'll know how to get the results at the crunch part of the season. But, yeah, look, it's been a mix and combination of things. Just needed more players to step up. Just needed to keep a little bit more of a settled side and possibly give those players a little bit more game time that should be playing, like your Jake Foster-Kaskis. So I think if we do those things, we'll start winning. But, tough period for us, but we're motivated to hopefully get back on track and give it a good crack this time ago.
Well, we've talked about him a little bit already, but Steve Evans, love him or hate him, and you guys obviously love him. A lot of other fans of other clubs don't particularly like him. Can't deny he's a very good manager. So how important is it for your club to keep hold of him for as long as possible? I'm going to say long term, but obviously sometimes bigger clubs come along and potentially poach managers. But how important is it for you to try and keep hold of him for as long as possible?
Oh, huge. And actually, we had some massive news a couple of months ago where he'd signed another 2 years onto his contract. So technically we've got him contracted to, I think it's June 2026, which is huge. Because, if we go back 2 years ago when he just took over, actually, it was his 2nd year anniversary on Saturday just gone. If someone would have said all the success and achievement we've had in that 2 period, we would have laughed. I mean, we were honestly, that season where we nearly went down, we were just we would have been like, what, we stayed up? If someone would have said with promotion and League One, we never would have believed you. So shows kind of what he's achieved in 2 years and what can he do in another 2 years. But no, to go back to your question, it's absolutely vital that we keep him. I think the identity he's built, the community that he's built with the team, the resource book and players that he's been able to bring to the club, the environment that he's built, it's absolutely massive. And it's a partnership made in heaven. And again, everyone hates him, but we love him. He's the manager that's changed our club trajectory. And look, whatever we'll achieve in 2 years from now, we'll achieve. For what he's achieved the last 2 years has been unbelievable. And I'm so happy to have him for another 2 years, hopefully, fingers crossed.
So, great start after promotion back to League One. Is there a slight concern that it will be difficult to emulate that next season? let's say you maybe either just make the playoff, got knocked out on the semis, or you just miss out on the playoffs. Is there worry? Like I'm just thinking here, like your expectations will suddenly have risen then, and to match that, to that momentum for 3 seasons in a row will be a real challenge. And there's obviously the risk of the second season syndrome when you slip down the table. Is there a slight concern that we're setting quite high expectations for the club now?
It's a good question, and I think as well, if you look at the teams that are possibly coming up to League One and the teams that are possibly coming down, League One looks like a really tough league. Like that. It evidently seems like it's going to be a lot more difficult next season. So I think in that regard, I think a lot of us as supporters know that we'd still keep that level head on of stay in League One, because I think we know it's going to be a lot more difficult next season. Yeah. But listening to Steve, and Steve had said this in an interview prior to Leyton Orient last Saturday when we lost 1-0, he said, if we don't make it, we'll rebuild, we'll learn, and we'll go again, and we'll want to be up there again. And I think in the manager's eyes, he's looking at it going, well, if we don't make it, we've learnt why we've not made it. Let's recruit better. Let's get a better team. Let's go at it again next season. So I think Steve sees a short window where we could possibly have a crack at promotion. I think in the long term, obviously, that would probably fiddle out, and wherever we end up. But I think Steve sees in these kind of 1 to 2 years as an opportunity, maybe, possibly, for us to be up there competing the way we're doing. So I think it'll be difficult in terms of how the league's going to shape up next season. But I think in the mindset of the squad and the manager, they'll be looking at possibly going better. Knowing Steve Evans kind of in a silly way, mentally in his mind, he'd probably look at next season and go, well, if we don't make the playoffs, we'll go up automatically. And that might seem ridiculous to us, but in the eyes of Steve Evans, that's how he's kind of, that's how his mindset is, and he wants to succeed. So, yeah, I do get your point. I think it'll be very difficult to emulate, but I think in our eyes, still, just to stay up in League One and to stay in a League One team would be very important for us in evidently what looks to be a harder season.
Yeah. January transfer window. Happy with it? You let 3 loanees go back. We'll talk about one of them in a minute, obviously, because he ended up coming to us. You replaced them with 3 new ones. I'm particularly interested to hear a bit about the keeper you signed, McGilvray, because we were very strongly linked with a permanent move for him from MK Dons. As it was, we actually ended up signing Harry Lewis permanently from Bradford. So I'm interested to know how he's got on in particular.
Yeah, difficult one with Craig, because we were saying this in our pod. We love Tay Ashby-Hammond, and Tay, actually, I think Tay could possibly play Championship football. Actually, Tay's that good. He's got the second most clean sheets in the league, and brilliant keeper. And actually, I think if Tay probably wouldn't have got injured last season, we might have had a crack at winning the league, actually. But incredible keeper. He's come up this season, Tay, and he's made for the level. And again, he looks like he could probably play a level higher. So it's been difficult for Craig to come in and play to that level. When Craig come in, he played at Wigan and looked decent, but in the 5 games that he played for us over that period, he conceded 8 goals. Compared to Tay then come in, and the next 3 games Tay played, he didn't let a single goal in. And so it's been very difficult for him to match. He didn't have a great game against Leyton Orient, to be honest with you. He probably was at fault for the goal, probably could have saved the goal. His handling wasn't very good, his kicking wasn't very good. So he has found it difficult recently. But again, I think having that competition with Tay there, it's very difficult to emulate. Tay picked up a little injury in the warm-up last week and didn't play, so we don't know if Tay's going to be fine for Saturday. Apparently he trained today, but we just don't know if it's going to be McGillivray or Tay. But yeah, look, Craig's obviously a very experienced keeper for the level. I just think at the minute he's finding it difficult with the competition with Tay. So he's played, how many games has he played? He's played 6 games. But yeah, he probably hasn't played to the level that he needs to play to get a consistent start. But look, still a good goalkeeper for the level.
Yeah. Harrison Neal then. Why didn't it quite work out with you guys? I think we talked about this on your pod, actually, when we had a chat before, but is it just a case of the competition was just a bit too strong at the time and he just couldn't get a start? It wasn't particularly he was a bad player, just he couldn't really force the players in there who were out of the team.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's the only thing with Harrison was, and I really liked Harrison. I thought he was a really good player when we first got him. Can't remember who he was on loan from. It was
Sheffield United.
Sheffield United, that was it. And he was at Barrow last season. Really good player. Come in and you could see, do you know what? He's a kind of Steve Evans type player. He'll run through brick walls. He'll win the ball back. He'll win it. He'll do all those dirty things that you need. And the games that Harrison played in, he was great. I remember he played at Burton when we won 2-1 back in December. One of the man of the match performances that day. But I think for Harrison, it was the competition in the midfield that we've got. It's there's a lot of competition there when we look at the players like, Jake Forster-Caskey, Louis Thompson, Finley Burns, some top players for the level. And I think Harrison just found it difficult to just get in the team and get a consistent run of games. We kind of make him like a similar mark to Harvey White for us at the minute, so can't get in and get a run of games. And I think it was important for Harrison to go and find a side that he could get regular football at. And actually, I think when the move come about, it was probably a good move for him to go to Carlisle, actually. I think location-wise as well. So, look, cracking little player. We wish Harrison all the best. He was great for us when he played. And I'll always remember that performance at Burton. He was honestly brilliant that day, best player on the pitch. And it's great to see that he's gone on and found a good place at Carlisle.
Yeah, he settled in pretty well, and the fans have taken him. He's probably been one of our best performers since the turn of the year. The last couple of games, he struggled a little bit, but I think that's probably the team dragging him down as much as anything. So there you go. Yes, obviously looking out to this weekend's game. I mean, what's your expectations? Are you hoping to get a win? And do you think you can drag yourselves back into that top six before the end of the season?
I've got to be honest. I think this is our biggest game of the season, and I say that because. And people hate me using the cup final image for a game in a league game, but it really does feel like a kind of cup final in a sense, because if we win it and we get on the 64 points, it puts us back in the League One playoffs. We go clear by a point. We'll be on level games with Oxford, Blackpool, Lincoln, who are probably the other contenders. And we know that if we can just get ahead in the League One playoff race with the manager we've got, we'll do it. We did it last year when it gets to crunch time. Steve Evans knows how to win football matches. He kept us up 2 years ago. We did it last year to get us promoted when we were going through a bit of a rocky patch of form, and he got us 5 wins out of 6 to get promoted. Same this season. We've got 8 games to go. A little bit of rocky form. If we can just get ahead, I believe incredibly we'll do it. So this game is everything. If we don't win it, it's going to be very tough with 7 to go. So I think for us, really need a win from it. Other teams aren't playing. Great opportunity. So it's technically our game in hand. And look, we've got a few suspensions. Obviously, Reedy's not playing for international duty. Carpigiani's obviously our captain, who's been player of the season again this season, suspended. I still believe we can win it. I think we've got enough there in the squad to come and get 3 points. And I believe the players will. I think they'll turn it on this week and know that they've got to win this game to really have a chance at making it. Tough game. Don't get me wrong, every game in this division stuff, it doesn't matter where you are. And actually, when you look at the home game, 2-2, I remember at a point in it, could have gone either way at the end. So, look, it's League One football. Anything can happen. You've got some top-class players playing on the pitch, so anything can happen in those games. But I really believe our boys will respond this week. And realistically, if they want to be in there at the end of the season, they've got to come here and find a way to win the match. So, yeah, I believe in them. I think they'll respond. Tough game, but I'd like to think we can respond with a win.
Yeah, Matt, you've been very generous with your time. Thank you very much. Before you go, let's have a prediction for the game.
Oh, toughie. Do you know what? I think it's going to... I've spoken to a few of our fans on our pod this week, and a lot of people said, I think we'll respond with a big win. And do you know what? I think it's going to be a lot more difficult than people give credit for. I think with you slashing the ticket prices and having a big crowd behind the team, I actually think it'll be a tough game. So I said on our podcast, a 1-0, a sneaky, horrible 1-0 win where we really have to work for it. And maybe one of the other strikers who have a chance after Reedy being away will go and nick us a goal and win the game. So I'm going to go 1-0 win to put us in the playoffs.
Matt, I wish you all the best for the rest of the season. Because to be honest, after this weekend, because it makes no difference to us because we're going to be in League 2 next season. But genuinely, wish you all the best and good luck with your battles getting to the playoffs.
Look, Lee, thank you so much. Best of luck, and I really do hope we can meet up again soon. Because I said it to you on our pod. I love coming up for a weekender in Carlisle. It's one of our favourites. So yeah, fingers crossed, mate.
Hi, it's Tom Piatek II, and you're listening to the Brunton Bugle.
And we're into part 3 of this week's Brunton Bugle. Thanks again to Matt from the Stevenage FC Podcast for taking the time to speak to us ahead of the big game this weekend. It's not really a big game for us because we think kind of accepted we're going down, but for Stevenage to get themselves back in form and pushing for a playoff place, I don't know, which is quite amazing to think, isn't it? As well as they did last season, that they're right up there in contention for a top 6 finish. It's a huge game for them, isn't it?
Yeah, and what's been one of the most impressive things is the switch in, well, not playing style, because they had a very direct style of play in League 2, but they seem to have got so much better. Like last season, they were all about just sort of grinding out results, and they weren't going to beat you with quality. Whereas this season, like when we played them in the reverse fixture, they were so good. They're one of the best teams, I think, on the day that we've played this season. So their recruitment in the summer obviously worked wonders, and credit to Steve Evans, even though I don't like saying that. He's got the best out of the players that he's got to use, and that's I guess it's the main role of a manager.
I mean, looking back at their recruitment last summer, we'll talk about the January recruitment as well in a minute, but you look at the quality they managed to get in, when you compare against what we were able to do in the end, their recruitment was a lot better, wasn't it? I think it's fair to say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, miles better. I mean, and obviously their location helps with being able to attract players, but they're not a club that operates on, a massive budget, I'm pretty sure. I know they've been helped with FA Cup runs and things like that, where they've got some money, and I'm pretty sure, to be fair, I think, if I remember correctly, their accounts came out and they'd made quite a bad loss or something like that, which, speaking of, do you see that Wigan lost £17.5 million in their most recent... 143%
of their turnover spent on player or staffing costs, which is astonishing, isn't it? There you go. I kind of feel like when you look at some of the signings they've made as well, there's some good young players in there, but also players who've played at clubs that have challenged them for the playoffs. Your likes of your Dan Butlers and the Thompson from Peterborough and Thompson from Portsmouth. Well, two Thompsons from Peterborough, I should say. Freeman at Wickham. All players who've done it at this level, really. That's the key thing that stands out. Along with the odd players here, Ashby Hammond as well, as they had on loan from Fulham last year, getting him in permanently. Kane Hemmings, he struggled a little bit maybe compared to Tranmere, but he did quite well at Burton, and Alex McDonald's always been a pretty good midfielder. So they've done that. And then obviously there's a few young players there, like the lad from City, Finley Burns, and obviously Aaron Presley, son of Stephen, is there as well. So they've made some interesting signings. In January, 3 of the loanees went back. Obviously, one of them ended up with us in Harrison Neal. But then they brought in 3 more players there. Vidane Oliver, someone I think who's worked under Evans before at Gillingham, I think, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, there's some connection there.
Nesta Guinness-Walker from Reading. And Craig McGilvray from MK Dons on loan. He's going to be an interesting one to watch, isn't he? Because he was heavily linked with us in January.
Yeah, he seemed like the preferred option ahead of Harry Lewis. So, like I said, I think it will be interesting too. Although they've got obviously him and Ashby Hammond, who are both pretty decent keepers. So I haven't looked at their previous squads over the last few games and things like that. I don't know which of them actually starts. I'd imagine it's McGillivray, but they've got a very strong goalkeeping department.
He started against Leyton Orient in the last game, and Ashby
McGillivray
on the bench.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, if you're going to sign someone in January, you want it to come in and improve your squad. So, and considering obviously we were trying to get him too, we'll see what he's like in comparison to Harry Lewis.
I do wonder if he was the preferred option or not. I wonder if it was a case of he was the main option until Harry Lewis became available, and we're like, well, actually, we can get this lad permanently. He's younger, he's a bit better on the ball in terms of passing out. Maybe he's a better option for us long term, possibly. And maybe McGillivray was more a short term option to tide us over for the rest of the season. I'm not 100%.
Yeah, you could be right.
Possibly, we don't know these things, I suppose. In terms of players they lost, they didn't actually. I mean, they lost a couple. A lot of them were to do with location, I think, some of them, and they didn't really lose a huge amount that you thought, oh, that's a disaster for them, is it really? A lot of players sort of dropping down the league towards the end of their career, and they kept that. The key thing for them is they managed to get quite a lot of the players tied down on longer deals, I think, that are potentially out of contract. Looking through the squad, who are the players that stand out to you?
2 of the ones who properly stand out, thankfully, aren't going to be available, and that's Carl Piergiani and Jamie Reid, who are... It's because of bookings they're not available, isn't it?
Reid is international duty.
Reid's international duty?
I'm not sure which I
can't remember. Who is it?
Quick look. He plays for... Northern Ireland.
Is he?
Right.
No.
Yeah, he plays internationally for Northern Ireland. So he must have been called up to the Northern Ireland squad this week.
Oh, so, right. You're right, yeah. But yeah, he's one of the players who fits into what I was saying earlier about Steve Evans getting the most out of his players, because he wasn't particularly brilliant or anything last season. You know, he was all right. He scored 10 goals, you know, got 5 or so assists, whatever. But this season, he's really kicked on. He's got 17 goals this season, so he's got 7 more than he did last season. He stepped up a league. And Pierre Gianni's just, I mean, you could see from, you know, even when he's playing for Oldham in the season they got relegated, that he was a class act, and he's gone to Stevenage, and he fits with Steve Evans and his style of play. He's just that sort of bastard of a player who you don't want to play against, but you love it when he's on your team. But not in like a mellish way he's going to annoy you. He annoys you with how good he is and his sort of bullishness on the pitch. So I'm happy that neither of them are available. I feel like there's also players that I'm missing from that first meeting who really stood out, but I can't remember their names. Let me have a look at their first fixture.
Yeah, I when I look through it, they're the two that stand out to me straight away. I think Dan Sweeney as well, who's always looked a good player. Although you know, he can look weak at times. You know, he should have been sent off in the game at Brunton Park last season, shouldn't he? If you remember rightly.
You're right.
Edmondson. As you mentioned, Alex McDonald's always been a lovely little player. I've always liked him. Elliot Liss was one they really thought quite highly of, and he had a bad injury. I think he missed a lot of last season, didn't he? I think so. I don't know how well he's recovered. Jake Forster-Caskey is one of those ones, isn't it? His dad was a great player. His dad and his stepdad were both very good players, Nicky Forster and Darren Caskey. He's one who never quite hit the heights I think everyone expected from him. Obviously, Nick Freeman as well, like the experience. There's so many good players in there, isn't there?
Jordan Roberts, I think he got the assist for the second goal in the reverse fixture. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of quality in that team, which is partly players who've emerged and become good players under Steve Evans, and partly because of smart recruiting. So they're another team, in fairness, who you could look at and go, we want to be a bit like them, where we're not operating under a massive budget. Obviously, we can now, but if we don't have to spend tons and can still recruit players at the sort of level that Stevenage have, then that's the model to follow.
Yeah, and in Steve Evans, they've got a manager who, you know, everyone always says it, very much the Marmite manager. Some people love him, some people hate him. Obviously, if he manages your club and he's doing well, you love him. Quite often those fans fall out with him when he leaves. I don't think that'll happen at Stevenage. I think they'll still love him whatever happens. Yeah. But, you know, we've seen it. Mansfield and Peterborough, I don't think he's particularly well liked after his spells there, to be fair. But yeah, he is one of those guys, isn't he?
He's a polarising figure.
Yeah, very much
but he plays up to it too, and I think that's why...
Yeah. He's a smart guy, to be fair, in that sense.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing, but I think he likes that part of it. He knows he's not liked, and he quite enjoys it, which then makes people want to give it him even more.
Yeah, he revels in it, and so does his assistant, Rayner. I think I probably dislike Rayner more than I dislike Evans, to be honest. I don't know why it is, just everything about him that drives me mad. But yeah, I mean, look, they've still got a decent chance of making the playoffs. I think they've had a few tough games recently, and their form's dropped off, 2 wins in the last 10. But they probably look at this weekend, surely they're thinking, this is a chance for us to get 3 points and get back on the horse, really, and, you know, push for that top 6 finish. I said this to Matt when I chatted with him, obviously, just before. Do you think there's a risk that if they don't get promoted this summer, if they don't make the playoffs, whatever, there's going to be a big expectation that they do next season, and actually next season could be quite a tough season in League One with the teams that are coming up from League Two and also the teams that are coming down from the Championship?
Yeah, I can see. I think their downfall next season, if there is one, will probably be more linked to players getting taken away from them rather than expectations being too high. I mean, obviously, it's sort of natural as a fan that you do get to a certain point in a season, then you think next season, all right, okay, if we can improve in these areas, then we're going to kick on, we're going to do better. So even if they don't make the playoffs this season, the expectation next season would be to be at least in and around that. But where they'll probably fall short is if they lose a Jamie Reid, if they lose, obviously they're going to lose Aaron Presley at the end of the season. He didn't join permanently, did he?
No, he did. He joined permanently.
Oh, he did join permanently.
Yeah.
losing players like that.
Jordan Roberts, people like that, yeah.
Exactly. So that's probably where I feel they're going to be most hurt next season if they don't get into the playoffs. Because I think if they get into the playoffs, then players can... There's probably more willingness to stay because they're like, right, I know I've still got a chance to stay where I'm at and where I'm comfortable and advance my career. Whereas if they just fall out of it, there's maybe more of that inclination to look elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Last time out, they lost 1-0 at home against Stevenage, against Leyton Orient, and there's a bit after that in that game, wasn't there? I think I saw that.
Battle of the annoying managers.
Yeah. I mean, they were the ones on the touchline, weren't they? The playoff final, actually, as well. I remember they were doing the analysis on Sky. We were giving Steve Evans a little bit of stick below us because he had to play us when we were going for half-time and stuff like that. There's a few little stats and stuff ahead of the game. Referee for this one, Daniel Middleton from Derbyshire. It's his first season as an NFL referee, taking charge of 25 games so far this season, handing out 81 yellows and 5 red cards. He does like a red card. If you look at last season in the National League, he handed out 69 yellows and 7 red cards in just 21 games. An average of 1 every 3 games. What I would say is 3 of those red cards came in 1 match. So it still shows he does like a card.
So still 4 in 20 games. Still 1 every 5 games. That's it's quite a high percentage even still.
But the last United game he took charge of was the 2-2 draw with Northampton Town at Brunton Park last December, which no Blues players were booked that day, actually. So it just goes to show maybe he can be a bit calmer at Brunton Park. Annoyingly, the 4th official for this game is also Thomas Parsons. So if you're looking for someone to give a bit of stick at the game, that's
God, I mean, it's lucky that section of the paddock still cordoned off. Otherwise, Steve Evans and old Parsons would have a even worse time than they probably are going to.
Yeah. Well, the suggestion out from Matt there was that they're not 100% certain if Evans is actually going to be allowed to be on the touchline because he's just served a 3-match ban, but apparently he contacted the touchline in a way that potentially broke one of his bans. So he might be extended for another game or possibly get a new ban. That was the rumour going around, apparently. Apparently he didn't quite serve his ban as he should have done. So as a result, he might actually miss this game. He might not be on the touchline. So it's all right. I'll be in the director's box behind us so I can just give him a bit of stick instead. So just to see what happens with that. Head-to-head record, it's not the 41st meeting because I haven't updated that bit. Sorry, it is let me work this out in my head quickly. It is... Oh God, I'm trying to work this out. 28th meeting. 28th meeting of the two sides. So
I don't think it is.
No, we played 27 times already.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, you're right.
28th meeting of the two sides. Quite a lot, actually, to be fair, considering they only came to the league, 20-odd years ago. United have won 12, 6 have been draws, and 9 wins for Stevenage. Stevenage are unbeaten in the last 3 fixtures against us. In terms of current form, they're actually they're not doing that well, as we've mentioned there. They're 16th in the last 6 games form table with a record of 1-1, drawn, loss. So they haven't won in 4. You know what that means. United are 20th with a record of loss 1 and then 4 losses. Let's talk about United now then. There's not really much you can do, is there really? Just roll the tombola one more time and see what comes out. Paul Huntington missed the game against Shrewsbury. Would you bring him back in for this one? I think I probably would. I think this is one of those games I would bring him in for, personally.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a passion game, so you'd want to have someone like him in there who's going to be in the referee's face and you can
deal with
pushing
the fun
for yellow
games
cards.
As well, can't
he? Exactly. He's well versed in that area of the game. So I definitely would. But
I'd bring him in for Barkley probably and shift Lavelle across. As much as I'm not, I'd like to see Lavelle probably dropped and given a bit of a rest. I don't think Simo will. I think he'll play every game for the rest of the season.
I mean, maybe it's just the time of recording this, or it's probably the state of the season. I look at the starting 11, and I acknowledge it, but there's no reaction to it at this point.
Yeah.
It's just I see it. I say, okay, that's who's starting for Carlisle.
Yeah.
But there's no emotion. I don't look at it and go, oh, that's an interesting choice, because it's meaningless at this point.
I mean, it'd be interesting if they put like Dudek in from the start or something like that, or I don't know,
Oh,
James Harrison centre back, something like that. That'd be interesting. That'd be a bit of banter. Wing backs, well, Ellis and Armour started against Shrewsbury. Would you change that up again? I think, to be honest, I'd stick with Armour at left wing back, and I'd probably bring in. He's not going to pick back because, for whatever reason, I think I'd bring Emmanuel in. Just try.
I think Emmanuel will help because Stevenage, even though they've improved a lot in quality, they are still quite a physical and physically capable team. So I think Emmanuel will help in terms of dealing with that, maybe a bit more than Jack Ellis will. So I'd agree with you with that.
It's hard to work out what we were doing against Shrewsbury in terms of the front three. What we pick. I mean, Neil and McGee can pick themselves pretty much because we haven't got anyone else to play those sort of holding roles.
Yeah.
The front three then, what do you do? I mean, Armstrong's going to start, obviously, but it's the case of Diamond and Butterworth. Do you stick Diamond up there with Armstrong, and then what do you do with Butterworth? I wasn't really very convinced with him against Shrewsbury. Personally, I think I'd probably get Charters back in there, but that's just my opinion on that one.
Well, the problem with the likes of Butterworth, and there's others too, is they've had good cameo performances from the bench, and they've come on and done well. And the next game, you think they've done well. They deserve a chance to start. Yeah. But then in that, whenever they start games, there's not really much that you can hold on to and say, okay, you've done enough that you can have an extended run. There's no reason why Butterworth should or shouldn't start. There's no reason why Gibson should or shouldn't start. Same with Charters and Sean Maguire and a lot of players. So I think the what I'd want to see is just of the players that Simpson wants to use next season, prioritise them, make sure they are in your starting 11. And those players aren't going to make up our starting 11 because we know it's not good enough yet. So, and just fill in the bits around it with the best options you have. So, I think in terms of players who would likely to be here next year, obviously Butterworth is going to be here next year, but how much he's actually going to be used. I think I'd probably go back to having Diamond playing off of
Armstrong.
Because I think it's worked well at times, and there's nothing really to suggest that Butterworth deserves to start again. And you could argue the same for Gibson. He has good performances off the bench, but I can't remember the last time he started a game and really had a massive effect on it.
Since he started a game, actually, even generally, I'm just trying to think. It's been, I can't even remember off the top of my head.
I think it might have been that long before Christmas.
I'm sure he started since then. I'm sure he started a game.
Has he?
At some point.
I don't know.
I know if we play 4-3-3 with him and Diamond, I'm sure at some point. I can't remember exactly when, but I definitely remember that happening at some point. But no,
I'm less sure. Honestly, I think it could be before Christmas because I remember people not being too happy with the fact that, obviously, Exeter came off. I'm pretty sure he came off the bench, and Fleetwood he came off the bench as well, because Simpson wasn't happy with him and Planger's efforts.
He started against Cambridge on the wing.
Oh, right, okay.
Right wing. He played the full 90 minutes.
Well, I should have remembered that.
Bristol Rovers as well. He started that game. So that's the last game he started was Bristol Rovers away. So, yeah. There you go. Not much to say about it, really, is there? Okay. The other thing to say, actually, that I didn't actually mention earlier, Sean Green won't be involved because he's been called up to the Ireland under-21 squad.
Of course, yeah.
So well done to Sean. Bear in mind, he's barely played for us, but there you go. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see who comes onto the bench actually to replace him as well, possibly as an extra player in there. It might be one where if him back does step up, I don't know, or someone. You'd imagine maybe an extra centre back on there. There'd probably be more of the likely option, but I suppose Huntington coming would help there.
Well, I guess because Huntington wasn't on the bench, then maybe if he comes in, Barkley will probably just be that one who fills that role.
Absolutely. Right, prediction time. What are you going to go for, Adam, for this one?
I'm just going to try and accrue points on that tally before the end of the season. We're going to go for a 3-1 loss.
Ooh.
And I'm going to say that Taylor Charters is going to score a late free kick. It's going to mean absolutely nothing because we'll have already lost the game and Stevenage will have sat back for the 45 minutes of the second half because they won't have anything to play for.
Okay, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. I might as well be optimistic. Someone needs to be. 2-1 win, Luke Armstrong and Jack Diamond to get the goals. Right, let's have the predictions of Dan and Mike. Dan first.
Who cares anymore? Carlisle 3, Stevenage 2, Armstrong, Diamond and Mellish.
He always picks the same scores as me.
It sounds like he'd like recorded that on St. Patrick's Day and he was just hammered. He was like, who cares?
He definitely didn't because he sent it to me literally just before suddenly. So he's just like, I need to send him.
Harry Lewis to get an assist. What matters anymore?
In fact, didn't he predict 9-0 for a game earlier this season? So
pretty recently he put something like that down.
Dan's gone delirious. Right, here's Mike's prediction for this one.
I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw with Taylor Charters on the score sheet for us.
Oh, so, we're not sharing the goals around too much this week. We're sticking to pretty solid, and there you go. Right,
I'm going to be on my own with the Charters prediction, but
ex-Blues time. There's a couple of weeks in to cover because obviously we didn't do it last weekend when we did the match review episode. Let's start with the weekend of the Charlton game. Andy Cook, he scored for Bradford City in their 3-0 win at Accrington Stanley. Paddy Madden scored a goal and missed a penalty. They're not connected, I should say. He missed the penalty early in the game. He then scored the winning goal in the 93rd minute in a 1-0 win for Stockport County over Newport County. So that's massive result that for Stockport. Tristan Abrahams, he features a couple of times this weekend. He scored for Maidenhead United in their 4-2 win over Dorking Wanderers. Olafelo Olamola, he scored for Bromley in their 2-0 FA Trophy win over Barnet. Luis Alessandro, we haven't mentioned him much this season, have we? He scored for Hyde United in their 1-0 win at Workington, of all places. In the Border TV, Dumfries, Galloway, whatever you want to call it, Border Derby, Annan Athletic ran out of the winners 2-1. Matty Douglas scored for Annan and Gavin Riley scored the consolation goal for Queen of the South. Big result for Annan, that, isn't it? Keeps them in touch, doesn't it? And they're not going to finish bottom because Edinburgh City, I think, have been relegated now, and that's been confirmed. So there's every chance that they could possibly get out of that playoffs. If not, I think they've still got a decent chance at the playoff because they've picked up some decent form, haven't they? So
just sort of on the topic of relegation, obviously it's imminent for Carlisle, and obviously it's dependent on results because if we lose and teams above us win, it's going to become shorter. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure from what I worked out, it could be Lincoln at home who have scored, what is it? It's 16 goals in the last 3 games. Could be the game that relegates us.
Typical. We'll win it 1-0 and still go down.
That's
what'll happen.
Yeah, we'll stop their promotion push. We'll stop their promotion push with a 1-0 win in an absolutely meaningless game when they should put 8 past us.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan Edmondson, he also scored for Central Coast Mariners in their 3-0 win at MacArthur. Into the midweek of that week, Cameron Salkeld, he scored for Darlington in their 2-1 win at Blythe Spartans, and Richie Bennett netted a goal for Southport in their 1-0 win at Chester. They both feature in the weekend goals as well. But let's start at the highest level we can first. Andy Cook, he scored for Bradford City again. Unfortunately, it was a 5-1 hammering against Mansfield Town. I mean, someone was telling me about they saw bits of this and just said Bradford were awful. And they midweek against Notts County, who hadn't won in 11 or something like that, they also lost.
They're in a bad state, man. They're in a really bad state.
Interesting to see what happens again. I mean, there was actually a clip showed before their game of their fans in the ground, and there was barely 5,000 or 6,000 in, wasn't it?
I know. It makes it even more sort of stark because they've got that big stadium.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
It's really not empty. Also, side note, I can't not hear Andy Cook's name, and I'll just every time I hear Andy Cook's name, I'll think Fireworks kept him up. Yeah, that little tune of Fireworks kept him up. Andy Cook,
brilliant. Tristan Abrahams, as mentioned before, he features again. He scored for Maidenhead United. This time it was a 4-1 defeat at Dagenham and Redbridge. Cameron Salkeld scored again for Darlington in their 1-0 home win over Peterborough Sports. Richie Bennett got a goal for Southport, but they lost 3-2 at Blythe Spartans, or home against Blythe Spartans, sorry. And finally, Josh Todd scored a goal for Queen of South in their 4-1 defeat to Falkirk. Only one of a little bit of news. This came out of nowhere, didn't it? Luke Planger's got himself a move, hasn't he, Adam? And he's going to be going and playing for the Finnish champions, HJK Helsinki, on loan.
Yeah. He likes an international loan move.
He does
this boy, because he was in Belgium. I mean, from Crystal Palace, Carlisle's almost international.
Yeah.
And yeah, Helsinki.
I
wonder how that came about.
I think
very random.
The coach there possibly used to be his coach somewhere else. That seems to
I mean, that would make sense. But it's odd. Actually, I was searching through. I think I was searching through my Twitter page or just through Twitter for things about Plange or something like that. And I saw someone who, I can't remember what it was, but it was someone like pretty well respected EFL person on Twitter when we signed him, being like, "Oh, that's a brilliant signing for Carlisle." I look back on it and think, "Oh, imagine if it could have been. It would have been so nice for him to." We all wish it would have worked out. He
just wasn't good enough, and there's questions about his attitude as well, I think, to be honest, towards the end. And fair play though, he seems to be prepared to put himself out there and make these moves far away from home, but it never seems to work. I did see some. I managed to use the old translate button on Twitter to find out what some of the Helsinki fans were saying about it. Some of them were very excited, thinking, we signed a goal scorer. I was like, have you actually looked at his record? Yeah. It's not that good, to put it bluntly. He's been bombed out everywhere he's been, pretty much. But good luck to the lad. Maybe it'll work out. He was picking up a bit of form for Palace's under-21s, from what I remember. I think he scored a hat-trick for them the other week, and he's been on the bench for the first team a few games because they've been short of players.
Yeah.
So, it may well just be the move that kickstarted his career. I'm not convinced, but I'd imagine he's probably not got much of a chance.
Good luck to him.
Palace. Yeah, good luck to the lad. That's it then. I think we've pretty much wrapped it up for this week. Adam, thanks very much for joining me once again.
Yeah, no worries. All good. Thanks
everyone for listening. We really appreciate your support throughout the season. Obviously to the London branch as well for their very kind sponsorship. If you want to get in contact with us, I keep forgetting to mention this, you can find us on Twitter at Brunton Bugle. Email us bruntonbugle@gmail.com. We're on Facebook as well. I think we're on Instagram, but I never post on there. I should probably get around to doing that this summer maybe. But yeah, no, just drop us a message sometime, and we're happy to read them out on the show. I know we do these listener question ones every now and then, but it's just be nice to get regular correspondence. If you want to send anything in, you're always welcome. We'll be back next week to look ahead to the Easter weekend games. We'll do a double header for the preview for that one. I can't say I'm looking forward to going to Peterborough. £27 to watch us probably get battered, and then Simba against Lincoln. It's just want the season to be over. I just want the season to be over. Let's just start.
We've got 2.5 hours less.
Exactly that. Thanks everyone for listening, and most importantly of all, up the Blues.
Up the Blues.